Here we have part 7. Let me write that in right here. There it is. Part 7, page 355. And we're going on to the next layer down. And that's listed for our benefit right here. We're going to be looking next at flexor digitorum superficialis. And it's a significantly larger muscle. It's in the middle range. It has 2 heads of muscle going to fingers 2, 3, and then 4, 5. Okay, so let's take a look here. Looking at this middle section here, we have these tendons. Do you see them? They're actually forming a Y, and they're going to the second phalanx of each of these fingers, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And they're coming from 2 muscle bellies up here. One muscle belly is taking care of this side, one muscle belly taking care of this side. Okay, do you notice that it's going through what we would call the carpal tunnel? Okay, this is 4 of the tendons, 4 of the 10 tendons that go through the carpal tunnel. Okay, so again, we revisit this little page right here, and we have the carpal tunnel, and we have the first 4 listing here are tendons of the flexor digitorum superficialis, okay, of the 10 things going through. And we're actually seeing them going through here, just the way you like it. And then let's take a look here at origins and insertions. We're coming from the medial epicondyle, but even more so from other aspects of the humerus, the coronoid process of the ulna, the shaft of the radius, and we're going down by 4 tendons to the middle phalanx of each of the fingers 2 through 5. Okay, so the middle phalanx is right here. Middle phalanx, middle phalanx. Okay, and what's it good for? It's basically excellent at flexing the wrist and middle phalanges of the fingers 2 to 5. Important finger flexor, as it were, for speed. Okay, so this is a quicker muscle. It's sort of like gastrocnemius compared to soleus, if you know what I mean. And flexor against resistance. Okay, so that's that one right there. It's the median nerve that does the entire, we have the median nerve here. And you can see that we're actually going C7, 8, T1. So for those of you of the PT persuasion, you're going to want to remember the roots. I'm not going to actually test you on specific spinal nerves, but you might want to put that in your cap at some point. Now we're at the deepest layer. This is the 3rd layer down, and we're noticing that we have 4 more tendons. And in this case, the tendons are actually penetrating the superficialis. We're going in between the Y right there, going out to the end. Okay? So that's part of the program here, is that we're going to go to the distal phalanx of fingers 2, 3, and 4 and 5. And the reason that I'm using these different letters here is that the muscle belly that takes care of these 2 fingers is innervated by the median nerve, median. And then the muscle belly innervating this side of the muscle is innervated by the ulnar nerve. Okay, so now we have altogether 1.5 muscles innervated by the ulnar nerve in the forearm. Who are they? They are number 1, the flexor carpi ulnaris, and then the half over here. Now, this is sort of a tricky thing. So if somebody's asking you, what's the innervation of the flexor digitorum profundus for fingers 4 and or 5, you would have to say ulna. If it's fingers 2 and or 3, then it's going to be the median nerve. So I need you to pay attention to that. Okay, the other thing too is that, remember when we innervate a muscle, that means the joint and the skin overlying that is going to be innervated by the ulnar nerve. So the ulnar nerve is innervating the flexing muscle for the wrist right here, and for these 2. So the skin over here, this whole region of skin overlying this structure right here is going to be innervated by the ulnar nerve. And how can we actually test that? We actually have a funny bone right here. So here, right next to the medial epicondyle, is a little outcropping there, but then right behind it is going to be a little groove, and that's where the ulnar nerve is living. It's actually quite exposed right there. So if you were to tap it with your finger or accidentally bump it with something, you would be hitting your funny bone, and you would feel tinglies out here. Okay, and I'm sure you've had that experience. Okay, again, we have more going, as you can see, going through the carpal tunnel. Then we have one more in there. It's called flexor pollicis longus. And before we leave here, this one right here, the flexor pollicis longus, is the next one. But before we leave profundus, let's take a look here and notice that we're actually starting from mostly a little bit the coronoid process of the anterior surface of the ulna, but mostly the how shall I say, the interosseous membrane and the deeper parts of ulna and actually radius. Then that's going to the distal phalanx of fingers 2 to 5. And we're engaged in slow-acting flexors. So remember, speed was basically the province of the superficialis. And here in the profundus, we're dealing with more slow-acting flexor of any or all fingers, helps flex the wrist. Okay, so, and again, the medial half is taken care of by the ulnar nerve, lateral half by the median nerve. Now we're over here on the flexor pollicis longus. Flexor pollicis longus is arising mostly from the radius as well as the interosseous membrane, and it is going to the distal phalanx of the thumb. Remember, the thumb only has a distal and a proximal, no middle. And we're going to be flexing the distal phalanx of the thumb. Okay, and we're going to be using the median nerve. Okay, and right down here, we're starting right here. It's very deep. It's coming this way. It's going through the carpal tunnel, and then it takes a hard right over here and goes off to the distal phalanx of the thumb. Okay, remember the thumb when it flexes this is flexion, this is extension, this is abduction, this is adduction. So you have to do that with your own hand, get flexion and extension down, and then figure out what's 90 degrees, in this direction, so that you can figure out what's up. Let's take a quick look again over here. Now we have a full summary of 1 through 4 is the tendons of flexor digitorum superficialis. Then 5 through 8 are tendons of flexor digitorum profundus. And then finally the number 9 is tendon of the flexor pollicis longus. We just did this one. Okay, so these two are the deep layer. This is the middle layer. And then we also have the nerve going through. So we have the median nerve traveling right through the tunnel, which is a problem because now we actually, with the nerve going through there, that means that we have limited space, and if there's inflammation, swelling, and that sort of thing, then we impinge upon the nerve, we prevent action potentials from traveling. If we do that for long enough, then we have atrophy of the muscles. One of the things you look at in your patient is does this mound of skin and underlying muscle go away? Does it flatten out in your patient? Did they start to have carpal tunnel pain? And when you press against the wrist, is it painful? And then down the road, they don't get it taken care of. They're afraid to go to the surgeon or whoever is going to help them with this problem. And sometime later, the pain begins to decrease and they think that they're okay. But actually what's happening is atrophy, and that part of the hand actually collapses and becomes flat, and they lose power in these fingers through here. So that's not a good outcome. Alrighty, one last little detail here is that we have this little square muscle here, and it's called pronator quadratus. And I'm not exactly sure where we have identified that little buddy. but nevertheless, it is innervated by the median nerve, and like any pronator, it's going to bring the thumb this way. All right, we're going to spin the thumb this way so that we have pronation from the supine position. Okay, pronator quadratus.